Welcome to today's episode of Echoes of the Battlefield, where we explore the untold stories of Civil War soldiers that were there during the war and experienced different conditions and different treatments for their conditions. Today we'll get to speak to the actual soldiers of the war. Today we will have William, which is a white soldier who fought for the Union, Alfred, which is a black soldier. Then we will have Private Samuel, which is a black soldier, and then Private John, which is a white soldier. First, we'll start off by asking them, the soldiers, their different conditions during the war. Now let's start with William, a white soldier who fought for the Union. William, what were the medical treatments and general conditions like for you and your comrades?
Yeah, we definitely had it rough, no doubt. The camps were dysentery and just overall not well kept. With that being said, the Sanitary Commission always worked pretty hard to improve our conditions as much as they could. They brought in clean water, taught us about hygiene, and even provided disinfectants to us. And then also, if you were injured, there was also a pretty good chance you would get the proper treatment. Even though it wasn't perfect all the time, it was still more than nothing.
It sounds like the efforts were definitely being made to address your needs, even if the conditions were harsh. Now let's hear from Alfred, a black soldier in the Union Army. Alfred, how were you and your fellow soldiers treated during the war?
Our experience was very different. We faced not just disease, but neglect. The medical staff often ignored our injuries and provided inadequate care. And there was a belief that we were more susceptible to disease because of our race. And they didn't think we could endure the same hardships as white soldiers. The Sanitary Commission often uses us as subjects for their racial experiments instead of helping us heal.
That sounds devastating to hear, Alfred. You mentioned racial experiments. Could you elaborate?
Yeah, the Sanitary Commission and Army doctors, they measured our bodies, dissected our limbs, and studied us like we were specimens. They wanted to prove that we were biologically inferior. They called it scientific work, but it stripped us of our dignity. It felt like slavery all over again, even though we were supposed to be free.
William, how do you feel about that?
That's horrifying, Fred. Honestly, at the time, I had no idea. We heard some whispers around camp, but no one ever really talked about it openly.
It's definitely striking how differently you two were treated, even as you both fought for the same cause. William, what would your take be on this now?
Looking back, I definitely feel shameful. The Union fought to end slavery, but racism was definitely still alive and well, even among those who supported emancipation. It's a sobering reminder of how far we had come and still have to go.
Thank you both for sharing your stories. I mean, it's clear that the Civil War wasn't just a battle over slavery, but also a moment where medical science and racial ideologies collided in harmful ways. Now, we're going to hear about the same experiences that Private John and Private Samuel went through. Yep. Now joining us will be Private John, a white Union soldier who served in the infantry. John, can you tell us about the medical care you received during the war?
Certainly. When I was wounded at Gettysburg, the U.S. Sanitary Commission sent us doctors right to our camp. They cleaned our wounds, used disinfectant, and even gave me morphine for the pain. The nurses were very attentive and had clean bandages, better than I really expected for a battlefield.
It sounds like the Sanitary Commission was well organized. What about preventative measures?
They really put an important state on hygiene, fresh water, proper waste disposal, and bolted rations. It wasn't perfect, but they made an effort to keep the disease at bay.
Thank you. Now let's hear from Private Samuel, an African-American soldier in the U.S. Colored Troops. Samuel, what was your experience with the medical care?
I'll be honest, it wasn't good. When I got dysentery, they barely paid attention. We didn't have proper medicines or clean facilities. Sometimes our wounds were left untreated for days. They said it was because we couldn't handle pain better, but we knew it was just neglect.
That must be incredibly frustrating. With that being said, did you notice any other differences in how you were treated?
Oh, absolutely. White soldiers were seen as heroes, but we were seen as experiments. The Sanitary Commission measured us like we were specimens, height, weight, and even the angle of our jaws. They called it scientific work, but it felt like we were on display.
So as we're hearing, the black soldiers were treated more as specimens instead of soldiers who were fighting for their country, who were fighting for their rights, which is very interesting to see. Now I'm interested to see and hear about the conditions that the many different soldiers experienced. William, you're a white Union soldier. Could you describe your living conditions?
Certainly. Life in camp was rough. Disease was rapid. The food wasn't great, but all in all, we had support of the U.S. Sanitary Commission, which ensured clean water, proper waste disposal, hygiene practices, and also helped us reduce sickness by a lot. They even inspected our camps regularly and provided advice on maintaining cleanliness throughout the living areas.
It sounds like some efforts were made to improve your conditions. Alfred, as a black soldier, how did your experience compare?
Life at camp was rough. The conditions was harsh, worse than you think. For us colored soldiers, it was often worse than what the white regiments endured. We faced the same elements, the same hunger, and the same long marches, but on top of that, we had to deal with neglect and outright disregard from the people who were supposed to be leading us. Now let me paint you a picture. We'd be camped out in the middle of nowhere, and supplies would come in, food, blankets, medical equipment, but they prioritized the white people first. By the time they got to us, there might not be enough left. We'd be given the scraps. While white soldiers slept on proper bedding, we were left with thin, worn blankets if we were lucky. Sometimes we had to sleep on the bare ground, rain or shine. Food was another story. Rations were meager for everyone, but for us, they seemed to go bad faster. Moldy bread, worm-ridden meat, sometimes nothing but hardtack and water. There were days we marched or fought on empty stomachs, and when we got sick, which was often, given the conditions, it was a gamble whether we'd even see a doctor or not.
Wow, Alfred, thank you for that. The disparity is definitely stark. William, were you aware of the conditions in the black camps?
Well, once again, we definitely heard some rumors, but it wasn't openly discussed at all. Looking back, it's definitely shocking how different the treatment was. We relied on our sanitary commission for our survival, and I cannot imagine how life would be without it.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Private John about how their living conditions were. Private John, how were you guys living conditions on camp?
Life wasn't easy. Our camps were overcrowded, filthy, and disease spread quickly. But the U.S. Sanitary Commission worked hard to improve our conditions. They gave us access to clean water, disinfected the camps, taught us about our hygiene. We had tents and makeshift shelters which were comfortable but kept us out of the worst weather.
It sounds tough, but definitely structured and organized. Now let's hear from Private Samuel. How would you living conditions on camp?
Our camps were far worse, unfortunately. We were often in poorly constructed shelters or no shelter at all. The Army didn't prioritize our health in the same way. Supplies were scarce, and diseases like smallpox and dysentery were spread very quickly. While Sanitary Commission occasionally visited, they focused more on studying than helping us.
Studying you? What do you mean by that?
They measured our bodies, studied our health, and tried to prove theories about racial differences. It felt dehumanizing, especially since they weren't as concerned with improving our actual living conditions.
Sounds like the black soldiers were used as test subjects, even when they're fighting for the war. Private John, were you aware of these differences?
Not entirely. We hear about the black regiments being treated fairly, but it really wasn't discussed so much. We really didn't believe it. It's disheartening to learn just how neglected they really were, if this is true.
Private Samuel, how did this neglect affect you and your fellow soldiers?
It was demoralizing. We were risking our lives, just like the white soldiers, but we weren't given the same respect or care. It wasn't just the physical conditions, but it was the constant reminder that we were seen as lesser, even if we were fighting for the same cause.
Thank you, Private Samuel, for that. Now, with all that we've learned about the racial biases. Through Leslie Schwalm's research and a body of truly scientific work, we were able to learn about how they improved the sanitation and promoted hygiene and reduced disease for the people working for the Union. And we learned about the darker side of how the black soldiers were treated, ignored, tested upon. We learned how black soldiers' bodies became a battleground for debates over racial inferiority as they were measured, cataloged, and dissected in efforts to prove that they were different, that they could sustain more diseases, which just was not true. The very same sanitary practices that we learn, the same medical procedures that we go through daily when we go to the doctor's office, we didn't know where it came from, but we can learn that our medicines, as we've learned, that our medicines are built off racial biases, and this was just another lesson of that. This history reminds us that the progress often came with some contradictions. Yes, the U.S. Sanitary Act and commissions were formed, but at what cost? We learned just how different it was for the soldiers that might have been fighting for the same cause or fighting against each other. But thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new.